We're like a minute over and it's streaming now, but normally there's this sort of delay at the very beginning, so that's why. So welcome to Geeks on Screens with Coffee, and it is 7:16 and it's the 27th of July 28th of July. Look, it's good I've got someone who knows what day it is. And welcome to Johan. So thank you for coming on Geeks on Screens with Coffee.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, there we go. And we've got there we go. So I keep hitting the mic. I haven't got an extra symbol to put the dots over the A, unfortunately. I could have written them in. And let's sync video and sound. Welcome. And what are you drinking?
Right now it's just water, but it's a fresh mountain water from my well, so it's special.
Do you want to do a mini tour? That, like, you gave me a little. You've lifted up the laptop and showed me outside. Do you want to do that just so people can see what they can see outside your window?
Yeah, it's not the best of view today because it's been raining all day, but I guess you can see. So
honestly, I think it's a pretty amazing view. Look at that. So you are in your cabin.
I am 950 meters above sea level, roughly. Yeah.
And completely off grid.
Yes.
So you're running off. You said solar panels?
Solar panels and a battery bank of about 540 ampere hours. And luckily my Lenovo sells 12 volt car chargers for laptops. So.
Yes. So do you travel light then? I mean, so we were talking before, so we're just going to carry on as if kind of everyone's included. So when you travel up to your cabin, how many times do you go up there a year?
Between 15 and 30. I mean, it's at least once a month, preferably more often. It depends on travel schedule and everything.
It gets a lot of usage then.
It does, yeah.
I kind of think of cabins as kind of a couple of times a year kind of things, but
But Norwegians are very fond of their cabins. Though a lot of Norwegians have a summer cabin and a winter cabin, so they go to the sea in the summer and then the mountains in the winter, and so on. But yeah, the Norwegians that actually own a cabin usually visit them a lot.
So you said that before you had this cabin, you just rented cabins and you just visited. Did you go as often as like once a month, or did you go?
No, then it was during vacations. So okay. We tended to. My company has as a perk you can rent cabins pretty cheaply at the alpine destinations, so downhill skiing. So we tended to rent that at least once a winter and once in summer, and then I rented small off-grid cabins twice a year usually.
Okay, so we haven't even done your introduction. Sorry, I got so distracted by your cabin because I'm loving the look of it. Do you want to just introduce yourself? I saw that you work for Capgemini. So are you still working for Capgemini?
I still work for them. Yeah, my pompous, fancy title is lead solution architect. But yes, I'm a solution architect working on clouds, mainly Azure, but also some on AWS and dabbling a bit with Google in between as well.
I mean, the other clouds are available.
All the clouds are available, yes. Now that we have Azure in data centers in Oslo and in Stavanger, of course, a lot of our customers want to go there. So.
Oh yes, yeah. Are they open?
Yes, they are.
They're relatively new, aren't they?
They are. They opened in November last year, and they're still not fully up to speed, so there's not all services available yet.
Okay, all right. Sorry. I mean, I know that from the UK data centers. It was always a pain where someone says they want to use a particular service, and then you've just got to double check it's available in that data center, and you can't just go yes.
Yeah, and when it is going to be available as well. So.
I mean, this is no, we won't even go in the Azure questions. But you do lots of BI stuff. So are you mainly focusing around the BI stack, or?
Yeah, I started off. I'm not a technical person in studies. I mean, I have a bachelor's degree, or back when I studied, they didn't have a bachelor, but in Middle Eastern languages and culture. But my plan A of what I wanted to do with life got scrapped just as I finished university, and I threw myself around into plan B when I went into IT without any formal background. So I have been an accidental DBA. I've then mostly been doing all things related to database, including reporting on at the companies I worked for, and then gradually turned into a BI developer kind of thing, and then solution architecture, and focusing on the business intelligence, or now calling data platform, because there's so much more than just business intelligence these days.
So rewind a bit, because you took me off guard then. Middle Eastern studies. Tell me how that came about.
Well, I've been interested in history and cultures and languages for ages, and when I've been working as a tour rep after I finished army, because in Norway back when I was young, they had conscription. So I took my compulsory 1-year tour in the army in the northern parts of Norway, and then afterwards I went off to be a tour rep for Nordic tourists in the Mediterranean area. And then when my parents got fed up with me running about having fun, they forced me back home, and I had to pick a study, and I thought, well, I always liked Middle East, so let's start studying Arabic and religion and so on. Yeah.
So what were you planning? Did you plan like a career or something after you left university, or was it just fun stuff to study?
Well, I have an army. I'm an officer, so second lieutenant grade, and I had plans on taking my Arabic lessons. I also studied Arabic in Lebanon, and Norway had a force in the part of the UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon, and I was thinking of going down there to earn some money as a translator after I was finished. But 2 weeks before my final exam, the last contingent of Norwegian UN to Lebanon left. So yeah.
Oh. And yeah, double dough. Oh, and then it's kind of, what do you do now? But obviously, I mean, it's still great studies. I mean, there's no, you didn't lose anything by studying Arabic, but do you get to use it much anymore?
No, I don't. But parts of the benefits of studying languages as such is that semantics and grammar and understanding languages also is translatable to computer languages. Though I'm a shitty developer, but at least I can understand most coding languages, syntax and building of them and so on. But
yeah, well, I mean, yes, I kind of think if you think like I like to think like a machine, and I'm sure that makes me a terrible human being, but I like that sort of the way the computer languages are structured. That it feels quite natural to me, as where it feels completely unnatural to kind of other people. My brother's is very language orientated. He goes off and he does he was doing a phase of a different language every year. He would go off during the summer and go to learn Spanish or German, Portuguese, French, whatever it was. And he's a sign language interpreter in schools. Lived for a couple of years in Japan, and he kind of so speaking languages is his thing, kind of, and
I'm good at picking up languages for speaking. I'm really shitty when it comes to studying the grammar and learning to speak it properly, because that means normally you have to focus on I can't remember the English word for it, but you need to really push the knowledge into your head by just rereading all the time.
Okay,
yeah. So, which is not my thing. I don't have the self-discipline for it. That's why my university grades are, at least my Arabic grades, aren't really something to talk about. like my one of my professors said during an oral exam was, according to your written exam, you shouldn't be able to talk to us in Arabic. Yet here we are.
But I get, if you are speaking to people in Arabic, most of the time, I guess reading road signs, if you were, in the Middle East, would be obviously is very useful. But generally, most of the time, you'd be speaking to people, wouldn't you? So therefore, kind of that's probably more useful.
It would be, yeah. It's when you're starting to need to learn need to read and to write and communicate that way, written language. That's when I fail. But yeah.
So then you went into computing. Now how long ago was that?
That's like 1998. I had been dabbling around with computers since 1995, 96 something, but then I got a job in 1998.
Okay. I don't really know how time passes. I just go 98. That's around Windows 98. What was I doing then? So that's how I work stuff out. So did you? So did you start in databases, or did you start as a developer, or
no? I started support and networking. So the company I started working for had Novell NetWare, Windows 95, Lotus Domino,
IPX, SPX networks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And token nets.
Yes.
Token ring, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yes, I remember taking out the token ring network because of the 10 base T cabling had those odd connectors, and one connector broke and the entire network would fail.
Yeah.
I remember when
I used to be pretty good at it as well, so it's to the annoyance of people who had competed with me for that job, working in the company.
I wasn't good. I knew how I could make it work eventually, and then IP addresses came along, and then it was DHCP server will sort that out for us. I don't have to worry about. I've got to remember what my IP addresses are for.
And remember which subnet.
It must be long gone now, but we used to have a spreadsheet with the IP addresses of all the servers on it, because we would hard code the IP addresses into every machine, and if they had multiple network cards, multiple, and different subnet. The good old days.
Oh yeah.
So
it's a bit hard to escape the color of my beard, so yeah, I can't pretend to be young.
Well, you've got a good set of hair. It's not like you're kind of going. I'm kind of losing bits here. I would have.
Yeah, no, it seems to be sticking on for now.
Yeah.
But I started shaving it short just to be sure, so people don't notice it. That doesn't.
Yeah, I started shaving when the coronavirus hit because it was easier than getting anyone else could cut it. My daughter cut it first time, so you can't go too far. You can't take an ear off with some clippers.
Yeah, no, you can't. I actually started shaving or cutting it short, like it's 13 years ago now. I worked for a small consultancy. I was the only person in our company working in Western Norway. So I was stuck from home office for 4 years. And then having to remember to go into town, like traveling for 45 minutes into town to cut my hair didn't really work out. So in the end, I just bought a machine and just took it myself.
So let's fast forward, 98, 20 something years. And so what are you working on now? Are you on the Power platform?
No, I'm not. I'm Azure, So right now I'm doing. I've been working on a bid for a huge Norwegian, one of the Norwegian directorates, which we lost just before summer. After working on it from September until June.
Really?
Yeah. But I also work establishing data platforms for some oil companies and a couple of other Norwegian central bank and yeah.
Oh, okay. So is that kind of just working out the data warehouses or just at a very high level, kind of, this service connects to this service, it connects to this service?
No, it's all the way from the bottom up. So looking at, one thing is things like GDPR, compliancy, making sure that the data that they are dealing with is securely kept, that they can actually answer the GDPR regulations, so insight requests and so on. So high-level designs down to each and every service and down into practically coding things when needed.
Oh, okay.
Though these days I tend to have data engineers or somebody doing the actual coding for me, but I do need to know how to do it because normally I go in first and then set up the framework and then somebody else can take over.
Oh, cool. All right. That sounds like you got a nice job. You go in, you dabble.
Oh, I love it, yeah. And I get to work with things like Snowflake, and I get to work with AWS from time to time, yeah. And Synapse.
Other databases are available.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Synapse is. I think. I could talk about that for hours if you wanted. I could bore you, and I could bore everybody else.
Probably wouldn't bore me, but maybe it would bore the listeners. Yeah. I also get pulled into things like we had one credit card provider who had a 15 billion row table that they wanted to see if SQL Server could outperform Oracle, and the comparison was against dedicated hardware dedicated SaaS Institute installation, and we had 3 weeks to do it, and that's we started copying the 7 terabytes tables into a VM. So doing things like column store, compression, and everything, we did that as well. So yeah, I get to do these kind of things as well, and that's fun.
Yeah, it's fun if you can go in, you try it out, because I get involved in a lot of POCs just like that. 7 terabytes is on the larger side. We've done a few that big, but just the sheer copying of the data just takes so long. People just forget that it takes quite a while to move that volume of data.
Yeah, and if you're doing ingestion from Oracle up until, I don't remember which version of 11, the Oracle client had a bug in it that it stopped. It couldn't count higher than 3 billion, which we learned the hard way. So I think it crashed for us 3 times until we understood what the problem was. And then, when you have a three-week limit and you take like the first week to learn these things, and Christmas was in between as well, so it was fun. But we actually got to beat Oracle. We beat them. I think we couldn't get the benchmark, which was 1 second response time for select star from table where credit card number equals. But we actually got it down to 4 seconds, which was pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And I think for SQL Server as well. But you probably did a few tricks with partitioning, I assume. And
yeah, partitioning, and we did what I did as well, because it was 7 terabytes on disk. We pushed column store on it to put it down to 1.7 terabytes. And then I smacked a huge row index on top of that, which it blew it up to 7 terabytes again. But the just column store index, because it's the select start column store index, doesn't perform well. But it was 20 seconds, and then with the row index on top, it took 4 seconds. And we did that in 3 weeks, and the Oracle guys had a year to do the same thing, and they had ended up with 7 seconds, I think, 6 or 7 seconds.
Yeah, people forget that column store. So I have this discussion all the time, because in SQL pools, as we'll call them, or provision SQL pools, or Azure Synapse, or SQL Data Warehouse, or just DWs, whichever one you prefer. That
artist previously known as.
Yes, yeah, well, yeah, the product previously known as Data Allegro, which was, never mind. We're going too far back now. I was having a conversation last week, and someone was trying to do a single lookup of a row of a customer in a massive table, and column stores, they're not built for that. They're built for big aggregations. You know, they're a different job. You want a B tree, balance tree index for if you want a particular row, and they're 2 different indexes for 2 different jobs. So yeah, he was struggling with that. And we couldn't get around it, because it's trying to scan massive amounts of data. It's just not the right tool for the job, unfortunately.
Yep.
All right, I haven't even asked. So I don't even know what time. I didn't even. Sorry, this is stuff we should do before. Have you got a hard stop? Because I know.
No.
When's your wife back from the shops village? I don't want to interrupt.
From the village. She's out walking the dog. And we're up at 950 meters. There's 6 other cabins at this elevation, and none of them have people in it, so there's nobody around. Oh. So no hard stops.
Okay, all right, good. So I should have done that earlier. I know it seems a little unprofessional, but sorry. What's your favourite cheese?
Well, back when I could eat cheese, I had depended for Norwegian Jarlsberg.
Because you said that you were... Are you lactose?
No, I'm allergic to dairy.
Is it allergic to dairy? Is that something... Is it? It's not the lactose. It's something else in it.
Yeah, it's the proteins.
Okay, so that's all yogurts, all milk.
Yeah, I've tried goat cheese. I've tried cheap milk or cheap cheeses, and it's still the same thing. So yeah.
Have you've tried the soya drinks, soya milk and wheat milk, rice milk?
God. No, I'm also my Twitter handle is intolerance. And the reason for that is I've won the food allergy bingo. So there's no gluten, there's no dairy, there's no nuts. Yeah.
Well, so
so I have to avoid anything that is cashew or nut based, or anything that is gluten, and then of course dairy products. But yes, I do use some soy. I've finally gotten around to the taste of it. Soy yogurt tasted horrible, but again, it's the same thing with when you start drinking Diet Coke. It's like the 100 first liters, it's horrible, and then afterwards, this could be good.
Yeah.
So I do use some soy, and I have 2 kids, and one of them is gluten allergy as well, or celiac, sorry. And the other one is dairy allergic. So I spread my allergies.
I bet they're really happy they had you as a parent.
Yes, they are so happy with me.
Yeah, that's so. Is that so? Do you just really careful about what you eat? I guess. I presume you've been intolerant for a while, so therefore you're just used to it.
Yeah, I'm used to it. It's I didn't really realize it until like 12 years ago, when my son is 14. He got diagnosed with celiac disease before he was 2 years old, and then I started, maybe this is some of the reasons why I have issues, and started testing out, and yeah. So I've been off dairy and gluten since 2008. And I've been very curious, inquisitive. I started looking into why things work the way they do, why the ingredients, why the sweets make good bread, whereas when you remove gluten, it just falls apart. And I've been teaching celiacs since 2008 as well, 2009, sorry. No, actually 2008. I've teach celiacs how to bake gluten-free food, and also other allergies like egg and nuts and dairy. Yeah.
Okay, so you run little classes, or are they sort of online things or blogs? Or?
No, it's physical classes. So 4 times a year. These days it's like twice a year, but I used to do like 4 to 5 classes every 6 months. In school kitchens.
Okay, that's cool. I guess, we haven't even touched on what's going on around the world at the moment. I was going to ask, how your lockdown was, because obviously these classes can't happen at the moment. So how is Norway's... Sorry.
Yeah, Norway locked down hard, 12th of March. So we were among the first to do it, and they kept shut until early beginning of May. The last week of April, they allowed people to travel around inside Norway. Until then, we couldn't even visit our own cabin because it was illegal. And then they opened up gradually. You can start going to cabins and traveling around, and then they opened schools. Or the first 4 years of school opened in the first week of May. And then gradually, end of May, they opened the higher levels as well. So, and then from 15th of July, you can even travel to green countries like Spain. Now Spain is red again, but yes, all European countries that have been deemed safe within, and that is revisioned. There's a revision every 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. My company, though, has stricter limits. You're still warned not to go to work if you have to take public transport. And Capgemini is putting that a bit stricter as well, that you're not allowed to go to work if you can't either bike, walk, or drive car, which I can't. So I'm stuck at home for at least until the end of August.
Okay. So where are you going into the office? So where's your other house is near the office?
Yeah, no, my house is situated about 60 kilometers southeast of Oslo. So I travel by train, commute by train every day.
Oh, really? But every day? That's quite a distance to travel every day. It must take you...
It's about 1 hour.
Okay, right. That's not too bad, but
it's not, and it's trains, so it's pretty much on schedule. Always a bit delayed, but nothing to really be fussing about. And yeah, so you can sleep on train, you can read, or you can even work if you want. So it's.
Sorry, it's just the idea of having a train that goes on schedule where you could sit down and maybe do some work. That just sounds crazy. It's crazy talk.
Yeah, I know. It's the current Norwegian government is working hard to make sure that we go on par with the UK train transport. So they're privatizing the train schedule now. So even Go Ahead has been allowed into parts of Norwegian rail.
Oh. I mean, from our experience, it doesn't bode well.
No, that's what I was thinking as well. So, but
no,
what can you do?
One company owns a track, and then you have different companies that own routes and the rolling stock that goes on the routes. And then
we have one company that owns the rails, one company that owns the trains, and one company that runs them.
Okay.
Or several companies
Yeah.
run them. So
Okay.
they've even gone further ahead, I think, than you have. But
Yeah. Well, each company that runs it has their own trains. So yeah. So I mean, it's daft. I mean, I don't want to sound all 1970s, but and things were much better in the old days with slam door trains, and I'm sure they weren't as good as we kind of might imagine they were. But
the village I live in has an old railroad bridge across it. It was decommissioned back in 1993, I think. But back then you had when you went to the toilet, it was just a hole in the carriage. So people who lived in that village, when the train was coming, they had to run as fast as they could underneath the bridge, or they could have a really nice package delivered to them.
I've forgotten about those days. Yes, I do.
So that's also the olden days.
Yeah, well, you could actually, because it would just drop, and you could actually look down at the track, which is, we used to have those signs in the toilets, which is do not flush while in the station.
Yeah.
For the, it's in my head, I still wouldn't use a toilet while it was in the station, but obviously, it's not they've got their own tanks, and they're not dispositing that all over the countryside. Yeah. Obviously, that can't have been fun.
No, there is quite a lot of nice stories about how it was to walk underneath that railroad bridge at the wrong time.
Yes. Okay. And on that note, I'm going to. What was your favourite episode from season 1 of Geeks on Screens with Coffee?
It has either to be Chris Taylor or Ben Watts, I think.
Why Chris's? Is that because it just went on forever, or?
Yes, I love just watch Chris rambling. But no, it's more on the ground that you see these people, you meet these people out at conferences, wherever, and you talk to them. But that's about far as it goes. And then when you go on screen like this, you get to know them in a bit different setting. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, I mean, when I see Chris, we pretty much talk about exactly the same kind of nonsense and things. But yeah, no, it's exactly one of the reasons for doing this is that if I saw you talking at a conference and you were talking about, the Oracle testing you were doing and performance testing with SQL Server and seeing whether it could do X amount of rows, I might talk to you about that afterwards. But I wouldn't talk to you about your cabin. I wouldn't be asking questions about your personal life or what your dog is, or because that just wouldn't come up unless you brought it up. And it's not the kind of thing you just immediately do.
Yeah, I got shouted at by our friend Rodney Kidd because it turns out he didn't know that I when I was in university I was working as a music reporter for the college radio or the student radio. So I had interviewed a lot of famous artists, and why didn't you tell me about that before? Didn't come up.
Well, tell me. So, who were you interviewing then?
Lots of different people. I had an Americana show together with 2 other guys. So we became Emmylou Harris, to mention a few. It's several.
I mean, you know that
Lion Boys of Alabama.
Okay, you know that Rodney loves. I mean, we can talk about Rodney forever. I mean, Rodney loves Marillion. I mean, I don't know if you've and Fish and everything to do with prog rock. I mean, he's so. You've been to SQL Bits, haven't you? Several times. You've been
just the once.
Is it just the once?
Yeah, I was supposed to come this year as well, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're still waiting to find out if it's still going to happen in September. I mean, if things are going the way they are in the UK,
we were just discussing SQL Server Oslo with the rest of the organizers yesterday, and thinking about how we were happy we were not in SQL Bits' shoes. So
yeah,
it's a bit easier for a SQL Saturday to go virtual and plan around it than for SQL Bits. So.
Yeah, especially when they're hiring a massive venue, that it's quite hard. I mean, knowing what we know now is basically people just won't travel. And people in the UK would probably go, but who wants to come to the UK and catch the coronavirus and then go back home and then have to like isolate for however 2 weeks? It just doesn't make sense. So while that's going on, there'd be no point in having it, or maybe having a small one. She's back with it.
Last night was my 9-year-old coming in. I think he's been swimming in 12 degrees water.
12 degrees.
Yeah, he's a kid, so there's something around the they don't really understand the concept of cold. But, it's swimming water, it's summer, let's go bathing.
Well, once you're in it, it probably isn't too bad. But it's that sort of, for me, getting into a swimming pool, I get in really slowly.
It's better. The shock therapy is a lot better, but
Yeah. So
jump into it and slow in.
So can I quiz you about SQL Saturday in Oslo, about what's happening?
Yeah, sure.
Or what's the plan for it?
Well, we're going virtual. We have, because of the licensing that PASS has, we need to go with the 4 licenses that they have for GoToWebinar. So that will be 4 tracks, which meant we had to rearrange the whole bloody schedule that we had built. But
can't you use Teams?
4 tracks. No, well, not for everything. We'll be using Teams or we're planning to use Teams for the social bit, and then use GoToWebinar for the events or each and every. We've at least had a couple of sponsors in. Hopefully we can persuade some more to come. That's a bit hard. We have finally gotten around to finding a way to give them, to generate leads for them, because that's also an issue. I just found out today that we can use Kahoot.
Kahoot?
Yeah, Kahoot. Have you tried that? It's a really fun. It's a really fun online quiz program. So you build your own. I've used it a couple of times in my talks to break up the session, especially around when I'm doing security or GDPR and compliance and so on, because that's really slide heavy and rather boring. Can be. So to break it up and to make people break out of their stupor, I put in a code quiz, and you get points for answering this question correctly, and I can put a timer on it. So the question, you can only answer the question within, like, say 10 seconds or 5 seconds or something. And you get also points for how quickly you answer.
Okay.
And they also play some cheesy music in the background, so it's breaking up the mood a bit, and then you can have some fun questions coming in. And for the talks and so on, you just go to a page, you get the pin to make it sure that you're on the right page, and then you just enter a nickname, and you join in, and you get the scoring, and for each question you can see who's on lead, the top 3 or top 4 people, and then you can get fastest risers and so on. And it's really fun. And then I noticed that they have an events package which was just released, and I contacted them, and they even have a once off for a single venue or single event kind of thing, and that also allows you to have to gather email addresses, which is what sponsors want.
Okay.
So,
because obviously,
but Kahoot is something I actually learned it from Katrine Wilhelmsen, and I've been using it with success after that. So yeah, it's really good.
Cool. Okay, so do you use that to break? So there's something called the 40-minute lull, which is when people are, so it's from like things like shows and stuff, that people's attention span about 38 minutes in starts to wane away because they've been paying attention, and then there's like a bit of a lull, and then they sort of have a rest almost like a mental break, and then they get the attention back. So
So I tend to halfway through my session, which is around 30 minutes. So 38 minutes,
Okay, so that Kahoot. All right, I might look at that. That's interesting. So that's because obviously in the new world where people aren't physically there, it's quite hard to show sponsors value apart from perhaps having slides at the beginning of kind of things, having people register.
Yeah, and I mean SQL Saturday's main argument for the sponsors, apart from having the slides and having a stand, which they don't have anymore, is the raffle tickets, which they gather personal email addresses, which is leads for sponsors. And since we can't have that anymore, this might be a good way of offering them something else, because the only other option is hoping that the attendees will check off the little box saying allow sponsor to contact me directly.
Yeah.
Which nobody ever does, apart from the speakers, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I generally leave that on because I know that that's effectively the value. That's a lot of sponsors are using that. So yeah, okay, that's really interesting. So, were you thinking of recording the sessions or making it a live-only event?
We were thinking of recording it, but I really like the idea of having it a live-only event, because to record them would be something that you could then offer for repeated value, but we don't want it to be a virtual event later on. And I mean, SQL Bits is an organization that can offer recording of physical events as well, which we can't. We don't have the money and organization for that. So most likely we will not be recording, just for the simple reason that it's a once-off.
Yeah, if you let people know that in advance, then it means they have to actually come along. So you get people that really want to be there rather than people registering and then never turning up because they know they can watch it later. There seem to be a couple of different models that people are choosing, and there's the live only. So you be there or be square, which I think lots of presenters like, because you can be a bit freer because you know it's not being recorded, and if you make a mistake or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can probably have a bit more fun with the audience. If it's recorded, it's great because you can then link back to it later on. And also, there's one of the PowerShell conferences did the pre-recorded session. You pre-record it, and then you basically watch it back with everyone else, and you answer questions as it's going along. That was quite a nice way of doing it as well.
That's interesting.
Because while you're presenting, you can't answer questions. Someone else has to do that moderation for you. So that was quite nice. I can't remember. I was talking to Rob Sewell about that, and he said that's how they were doing theirs. But actually, recording in advance is a bit of can be tricky. If you've not recorded a session before.
Yeah, recording can be a bit tricky, and then you have, of course, people like me who don't have that much equipment either, so not a good phone, not a good microphone, and not a good camera. So yeah,
it's fine. If you got a reasonable laptop, Windows G will do most of the work for you. That will record the window, and you can use. I use OBS, so you could use OBS for recording the screen and even yourself down in the bottom corner. So that's how I do things. And actually, I forgot to do this. I did stuff for another customer. And if you go into Teams and you go onto the calendar on the left-hand side, and then you click Meeting Now, you press that button, it sets up a meeting with just you, and you can share your screen and record it.
Yeah, I know I could start a meeting with just myself, but I didn't think about recording it. But
yeah, which I kind of thought was a little odd, but we did that for a customer because it just was really quick and easy to do. Right, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and then we've already been talking for 45 minutes. I need to go to the script. Oh. I haven't asked this question. Okay, I haven't asked this question for a while. I recently replaced the screen and battery on an iPhone When was the last time you were amazed by your own brilliance?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. My youngest son, had gotten a radio control car, cheap one, and it fell off a sofa and broke one of the suspension. Sorry, and I managed to fix it with, of course, gaffer tape and some glue, and it really worked. You didn't notice it was broken at all, and it was really, really small pieces. So yes, that's I was really brilliant back then. Yeah.
I would have, because we talked earlier, I would have said making your cabin off grid and putting in the solar panels, the battery cells, and doing that all yourself. I mean, that was pretty good.
It's pretty good, but I didn't feel brilliant.
Oh, is that something every Norwegian can do?
No, but it's not just me. I mean, my wife is really, really good, really, really handy. So a lot of things that are being built at home, like doing fences, and she's working on pergola right now. She does that because I'm not exact enough. I've perfected the good enough approach, which isn't good enough for her. So yes, it wasn't just me that did the solar panels. She was heavily involved in that as well. So
yeah, you've got to be relatively precise, haven't you, with solar panels? You can't just be good enough. You can make it work, but
but it seems like because the solar panels need to be on the south side of the cabin, and that's that's one of the short sides, because that's where we get most of the sun, and that has the roof comes out, so you need to build those solar panels out from the roof, from the wall, and out from the roof. And she designed those boxes that I then built afterwards and put up for the solar panels.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was pretty brilliant, but it wasn't me. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess the question should be: when were you last amazed by your wife's brilliance?
She's too close to say that. She's within throwing distance. No, she's brilliant. She's a PhD, or she worked on a PhD until she ran out of money on molecular biology and ecotoxicology. I can't even pronounce it properly, but yes. So yes, you have to be pretty smart to do that.
Yeah. I like working with lots of smart people because I'm not smart. But, it doesn't matter because I've got smart people around me. They can do the clever stuff. You're an MVP, right, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not? Why did I think that you're one of these people that I think is an MVP, but you're not?
Yeah, I tend to hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is that just because
I think I'm starting to near the record for nominations, but I'm not. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But, it's not something you've been too fussed about? Sorry, it isn't. I didn't mean to upset you.
No, no. It's I really hoped to become an MVP when I started getting nominations in, but then I realized that it doesn't really matter. I do this because I love it, and it doesn't matter if I get that title or not. I will still continue to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice recognition, and I guess it's a nice little trophy. But to be
and I think. If professionally as well, I guess my job would love it, but yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting because I think that a lot of companies wouldn't know what an MVP was, or they wouldn't value it. But you think Capgemini would?
Yeah, but I see that from other MVPs as well. When their companies go on, our MVP XYZ is going on to speak about something.
I've never really seen that in the UK. It's generally kind of, is that good? Rather than...
in Scandinavia at least I've seen that, so yeah.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Yeah. because obviously it's people still go after it in the UK because it's people who are in the data world kind of see that as a kind of really important thing, because the early access to the technology, I think, or the internal access to Microsoft people is kind of what people like the most, and the Azure credits.
Yeah, of course, those are nice as well.
All right, so okay, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. I just thought I'd just so there's right. Are you familiar with Richard Herring?
I watch enough of your shows to.
Okay, all right. We'll do that in a sec. I was going to ask you before we got to there and who to nominate. What's the best thing you got from a conference? The best free thing, the best swag.
Best swag. Well, I can't really say that my son won from Data Girl and won a computer. A C64 last year, but that's not swag as such. That was a raffle prize. But I guess the laptop sleeve I got from Summit since 2016, I think I've used that a lot.
So he got a C64, as in a Commodore 64.
Yeah, Commodore 64, or one of the new ones. So you just have a joystick and you have a keyboard that doesn't, but that's where the computer is. And it's 12 volt as well, so we've been playing it here at the cabin from time to time. It's fun, yeah. To see how utterly shite the graphics were.
How dare you? I grew up on those.
I did as well, but I started looking at some of my favorite games and loading them in as these were really good, and now there's just pixels moving about.
Yeah, I mean, we used to convince ourselves that it was all about the gameplay, but I don't think it was. I'm not sure. No.
Why did people love Defenders of the Crown?
Defenders of the Crown? I don't remember.
Oh yes, it's a really classic. You played a king or prince trying to battle over Britain, and you could have medieval sieges and so on. But I think the main part was that people were rescuing a princess that was taken hostage, and if you got to it properly, she would undress. Fine, of course, but undress in front of a fireplace. I suspect that is why most people love that game. Yeah.
See, just accusing people of being lots of perverts.
Why? I never said that.
I used to kind of, Jet Set Willy. Do you ever? There was a game called The Hobbit, which was a text-based adventure. I mean, text-based adventures have disappeared, haven't they? I mean, no one types. I mean, do you look left or north? Take sword, wield sword. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. I think I'm showing my age. MUDs were the thing when I was at university. MUDs were the thing to play. But Mark Broadbent, he's been posting up pictures of him playing C64 on an emulator, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the same kind of thing I have. Or it might be an emulator just on the computer as well, of course.
Yeah. Well, I was playing MAME, and God, I mean, that was even 20 years ago. Multiple arcade emulator or something. Multiple machine, something like that. I can't remember what that is. Playing Double Dragon and all the old coin slot games. Never mind. Sorry. Yeah. I can't believe he would play when he could play like Fortnite or whatever the kind of the latest games are with amazing graphics, and he would choose to play, Manic Miner or something on a C64 or Ghostbusters.
No, but I think it's again coming back to escapism. So going back to something that's really simple and still nostalgic for us old guys. So it's I think it's a combination of that. I think it's probably a very nice way to relax if you've been sitting in front of a regular screen all day.
All right, so we're going to do a Richard Herring emergency question. So a number between 1 and 1001. and we'll see if it's.
Have you done 1001 yet?
I don't know. Let's go.
Because that's from my Arabic background. 1001 Arabic Nights, Arabian Nights.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I don't think we've asked this one. So, question 1001 is: have you ever used emergency questions in any remarkable or unusual real-life situation?
Yeah, I have. It's back when I was a tour rep, charter tourists. I mean, have you ever been to Magaluf or Mallorca?
No, I haven't. No.
I mean, Brits tend to talk about their people going to Magaluf and so on. The Norwegians and Scandinavian tourists aren't that much better. A little better, but not much better. And they come into some very, very, very strange situations. Drinking too much and dying horribly, or not dying horribly, just dying in a hotel room somewhere while their kids and wife are watching, for instance. Then you have to come in and kind of diffuse the situation. So yes.
You must have some interesting stories because they used to have there was a television program. I think maybe even a couple of them. They were sort of titled Brits Abroad, and they were just people basically getting drunk, and just what people would get up to, the antics of when lots of men would get drunk together, or women would go out and party in Magaluf or Ibiza or one of these kind of holiday destinations. And it seems a real mess. I mean, just
it is. Yes, I have lots of stories, but I can just mention one very roundabout. You've seen Fawlty Towers, yeah?
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen the one where the tourist or the guest dies, and he's trying to hide it.
Yes, yeah.
I've been in that situation, roughly. I had to kidnap a corpse.
It's not like on a plane where they put a hat and sunglasses and a newspaper and pretend the person is asleep till they arrive at the destination. You actually had to move them around the hotel to get them out.
Yeah, well, I had to move them around the hotel to come out, and the police had been out in and locking or sealing the room. Okay, all right.
I guess this is over 20 years ago, so the statute of limitations has finished, so you wouldn't be accused of any crimes now.
Yeah, no, this is back in 93, so...
and it's in a different country, so you'd have to be...
Yes, it's a different country.
Yeah, so you'd be fine. Legally, you'd be fine. Don't worry.
Yeah. No, it's... there had one tourist who had been... He and his wife, 2 children, and his daughter's girlfriend or friend had gone on a vacation. And then the 2 parents were pretty heavy drinkers. And he took the last shot of whiskey or some vodka or whatever it was, and he just died. Wet himself and died. And then first off, they thought, well, the wife was angry because he has drunk too much and taken the last bottle. And then after a while, the police came. And then some heads, security, police chief, something, came in and said, well, we can't move the body. I think I was there until 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. The rest of the family had to go to they got the room next door. And I was told to come back with an interpreter the next morning, and then the police would transport the body away. I came there 7:30 with an interpreter. There was one guy from the local police station. He didn't know who that officer had been, but he knew that he was an officer, so they had to obey him. We waited until 1 o'clock. This was in 30 degrees, and the sun was on the hotel room.
Oh.
And we said, we can't just leave him there any longer. So I went down to the local emergency room. I found an ambulance and 2 drivers outside and said, well, do you want to earn some money? I need to rent your ambulance. And they said, yeah, sure. I think I paid in a couple of hundred quid. Back in, I think it was like £20. So we drove up. They didn't have a stretcher. So I got the policeman from the local station to break the seal. I gave him some cigarettes and a bottle of beer afterwards. Then I got him and my interpreter and me. We carried the body in sheets down 4 flights of stairs. And carrying a dead body in sheets is not easy. And then stopping every couple of rounds down the stairs to see if there was anybody watching us, because that wouldn't have been very popular. Into the back of the van, drive the poor guy to the local morgue, which was closed for the day. Bribe my way in. Bribe the lady that was caretaking to make sure that he didn't lose his passport. Then I had to do self-service into the fridge. And by then he had gotten rigor mortis, so he was like this. And getting a body, I stood above the stretcher, holding the hands together while the was shoving the stretcher inside. It was a bit messy, let's just put it that way. But we got it in the end. Turned out that this was after the fall of Ceausescu and everything had just fallen totally apart. But there had been caretaker or undertaker taking care of dead bodies, who had managed to get monopoly on all foreign tourists dying in Romania that year. And he didn't do anything until he got paid. So that's what had happened. But luckily we got him cremated. We got him on the same flight home as the rest of the poor family. And everything went fine. And I only lost like 100 quid total, which was a nice investment for all the stories I can tell about this afterwards. But yeah. I bribed public officials, and I kidnapped the corpse.
It sounds like you are a very dangerous man to know. I mean, you're a good man to know in a bad situation.
Yeah, I tend to take things standing up, or not break into stress too quickly.
I can see that. If you can deal with that, you can deal with any customer having a little bit of a moan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm not sure how you carry on from that, but who do you want to nominate for the next kind of call?
Well, it actually gets quite nicely over to the next one, because the guy I could see in that same kind of situation, at least on the other side of it, is Matiela. He got the same deadpan sense of humor, so it could be.
Okay.
He's part of the Moldovan or Slovenian mafia, so.
Okay, so if you can do a little introduction, and then I can, rather than me blankly introducing myself, because he won't know who I am. No one knows who I am.
Yeah, sure. I'll introduce you.
Just a little tweet introduction. All right. Well, Johan, thank you very much for your time and that great story. And I think I probably do owe you something for that final story.
Well, we'll have a beer sometime.
Yes. Well, when we can travel. I don't know. I don't think I've got any customers in Norway. So I've got a few in Sweden, unfortunately. So it'd be unlikely for me to travel unless I can try and make up a customer in Norway to come and visit. That might be the way to visit.
You can see if we can find something. Otherwise,
bits or SQL bits or the next conference. All right. Well, thank you for your time. It's been great talking to you, and speak to you later. All right. I'm just going to stop the stream. All right. Bye, everyone. Stop the stream. There we go. Yep, that's us.
Okay.
That's a bit of a story, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And then I came back to the hotel or to the office later on, and people were asking me what's happened, and I was like, well, you've seen this faulty towers, and roughly that was happening. I could just get up the corpse. And there had been one young girl, one of my colleagues, who had, against my explicit telling her not to, she had entered the room where the corpse was, and she gone into shock. And the next day, she turned out to not have gone out of the shock afterwards either, because when she heard that I had been kidnapping a corpse, she attacked me for being a horrible man and not paying respects and blah 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 something.
I mean, you were basically just problem solving, and
I was.
That's a series of problem after another problem after another problem after. Because you can't leave.
I just looked at her and said, "If you don't leave now, I'll hit you." And then she left. Yeah.
Because you can't leave a body in 30-odd degree temperature, because eventually it will explode, because it will get so hot. It will be it's going to be a horrible mess anyway, because obviously.
Yeah. But that summer was actually really special, because it was too many tourists coming down to something they didn't know what was, and the infrastructure has broken down and everything. And I committed 2 crimes that year. One was this one, and on one I was smuggling 20,000 pounds across the border between Romania and Bulgaria in a toilet bag. Yeah.
I'm sure you had a legitimate reason to.
There was a legitimate reason, yes, but it was still an international crime.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't committed an international crime at some point in their life?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, it could happen to anybody. I'm not sure. But, I'm sure the family did thank you, because otherwise the father would have been stuck in foreign country.
They didn't understand that. They weren't told the details of this at all. So.
Well, no. I mean, there's no need for them to know. They just need to know, right? Well, as long as there was nothing untoward going on, or you hope that he wasn't poisoned or anything. That
he just drunk himself to death. I've seen enough drunk people and to know that this was what happened. So.
Okay, all right. And I guess being in the army and stuff, you get a little, perhaps, and seeing humans where you are a rep, you see what humans do to each other, and you see how humans can react.
Yeah, it's I call myself a chronic misanthrope, so and it's just part of job injury, so to speak.
Yeah. I guess not everybody has to deal with that and such extreme situations, but I guess it shows a certain bit of your character, which I quite admire. I know other people might find that a bit strange, but that's good problem solving. One problem after another problem, and it's like, well, sometimes the ends do justify the means. I mean, not always, but you've got to, But I assume by the time you got him to the morgue, and you're thinking, right, it's nearly done. Oh no, there's another problem. Oh no, he's got, as rigor mortis is setting in. Oh no.
Yeah. And then I had to deal with the Romanians are very, very afraid of death, and so the poor interpreter was so afraid of the whole situation, and then of course the criminal part as well. So I had to take some time to comfort him and calm him down as well. But
yeah. And how old were you at that point? Early 20s or?
22-ish. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive for a 22-year-old. But I guess you must be. Some 22-year-olds would just panic at that.
Yep, but working as a tour rep for a while, you get a bit jaded. I have to say. I
can imagine you probably start hating people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Because you do see a very and a very extreme side of people. Because
you do. Yeah. The amount of stupids that you can see in these kind of situations. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because people think when you're on holiday, they can do all sorts of things they don't do when they're at home. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm on holiday. I mean, I'm not going to get heat stroke. I'm not going to get, I'll just sit by a pool.
I'm drinking vodka. I'm not going to be dehydrated. I'm drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Surprise, surprise. You actually increase your dehydration by drinking vodka, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we all kind of know it, but you kind of trick yourself. Humans are really good at tricking ourselves into thinking, it'll be all right. That fourth or fifth vodka, was it really 5 or was it 8? Oh, it'd be fine.
I worked with a former photo model, a really, really gorgeous woman, and she was a heavy drinker. So when we were working Magaluf, we were drinking free in all bars in this Ponta Ballena street. And one of our days off, we were gathering at one of the bars and drinking tequila, or I stayed away. But she and a couple of our male colleagues were drinking tequila shots. Competition. At shot number 13, she got fed up of waiting on her male colleagues, and she just took the bottle and drank. So, yeah.
I'm surprised she wasn't unconscious by the time she got to the 13th.
She had a higher limitation or higher tolerance than anybody I've ever seen.
And I take it there's a bit of practice that goes into getting your alcohol tolerance up.
Oh yes.
Yeah, her liver must be crying out or must have been crying out.
I don't know if she's even alive anymore. I mean, she had the body and the looks to get away with taking that hangover out in the next morning. So she came rather late into office in the mornings and so on. But because our boss was male, controlled by not his head, or the other head, so, she got away with things that other would have been fired for. So
yes, that is I guess you use your advantages. Right? Your advantage is your quick thinking brain, as it looks. If you didn't take advantage of your you didn't use them, then what's the point in having them?
Yeah, true.
Because it's not her only advantage, because she probably was quite bright, especially if she was using her advantages. If she wasn't just
Yeah, she was. I've met people who are literally brain dead, and she wasn't. I mean, she was gorgeous looking, and she had brains as well. So,
I mean, I've met some people that are very, very clever, but don't have a lot of common sense.
Yeah.
So have a doctorate, but couldn't solve their way out of a paper bag, because it's just a different type of skill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm not massively intelligent. I'm not massively bright. I'm not well travelled, but I believe I can solve my way out of a problem. I can think creatively.
And I think that is a really good benefit to be able to do that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be clever and creative.
I would agree. I can't say that I'm very clever myself, but it's let's just deal with what we have and.
You use the tools you've got, and you use them well, and then you can cover up all the bits you're not very good at by enhancing other people. That's all right. I'm going to boogie because I'll have to walk the dog now.
Yep, I'll have to make some coffee. So
yes, oh yeah. Well, it's probably not going to get. What time does it get dark in Norway? Where your latitude?
These around 10, 11.
Cars, that's still okay. It's about 9 at the moment here. Well, getting dark about 9.
Yeah, it's 9:30 here now, so it's.
You're. Okay. Yeah, it's still pretty bright outside.
Yeah, the sun hasn't set yet. I think the sun sets around. Yeah, it sets around 10. It's slowly coming down towards 9, but it's still within either 9:45 or 9:10 p.m. something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and then your kind of winters are just pretty dark then.
Yeah, then you get the sun sets around and at the darkest I think it sets around 2:50 or 3 p.m.
Yeah, that's not significantly. It's about 4 p.m. or something. It can get dark here, so it's not significantly different.
No,
but
it's when you get further north that you get
yeah.
Then back in the army again, it got you had daylight coming in around 10, and then it disappeared again around 12, 1. Yeah.
Oh, really? So that's kind of.
But you never saw the sun.
It just
the sun was below the horizon. So you just got daylight, but never the sun. That didn't show up until February, end of January, early February.
So what was it like? Just a gloom.
Yeah. Or when I first experienced it, it was wow. I never expected it to be this bright. It was like daylight, but then it got dark so quickly that you didn't really understand. I had this quick nap and woke up and said, "Oh, are the shops open in this shithole at this hour? That's impressive." And it was like 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's because it's something that you don't in the UK. You don't get to experience. Daylight till 2 or 3 in the morning, or getting dark really.
But in summertime and at that altitude, the sun never sets. It never goes below the horizon from May until August, I think, or September.
Yeah, and that's where you need massive blackout curtains and stuff, so you can get some sleep to keep your body clock. Yeah, it must be. Do people actually move away? So from the go from the north to the south to get to avoid the extremes.
There are people who can't handle the extremes, and particularly in the winter, because you need some amount of daylight. So there's a lot of depression or people getting tired. I had some colleagues from India coming up to Oslo in November, and they asked me after a week, why am I so tired all the time? So it's because you don't see it in the sunlight enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to adapt to it, or you need to just move away because you'll be going crazy.
Yeah, that's that's a nice tourist slogan, isn't it? Adapt or you'll go crazy. Norway, adapt or go mad. Oh, nice. I like it. It's got a ring to it. All right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to boogie, and I'll speak to you whenever we see you at next event, SQL Bits, or I'll tune in for your SQL Saturday in kind of when you do your event.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for your time, and hopefully I haven't used up all your power.
No, that's fine.
All right.
Sure you can. Okay.
Yeah. All right, take care. All right, bye.